Hey everybody, welcome back. I am bored, and today I'm doing a unboxing of Seal Team Flix that I received. Seal Team Flix is a tabletop tactical dexterity game that has a sort of military theme, published from WizKids. Because of COVID, I've been getting into board gaming, moving past the old traditional days of Monopoly and Scrabble and other family board games, and I've gotten into this tabletop board gaming world that has an enormous variety of different types of games. Seal Team Flix, I love to play on words. I came across it, I'm not exactly sure when, because it's not something that I've heard about or seen about, but I like the idea. First of all, I do like flicking games. I don't have too many, I only have one, and it's a very basic, very almost silly. It's the Dragon Ball Super Heroic Battle flicking game, which when I bought it, I thought it's kind of fun just to be a little goofy and silly, just flicking a disc left and right trying to knock your opponent. And when I came across Seal Team Flix, I thought, oh, maybe it's just another sort of silly flicking game. But after reading the rule book, going through the manual and just reading about how it plays, I thought, oh, this is interesting. It's not sort of a run and gun like my other board games where you're just going in mindlessly shooting and trying to eliminate enemies. There's a bit more finesse that's required in this game. I haven't played it yet, but from what I've read, it requires a bit more strategy in terms of how you move about. You just can't be running out in the open because just like in real life, I'm sure, military personnel don't run in the open field running and gunning. There is planning and strategy involved. So I decided to pull the trigger, picked it up. It's a big box compared to all my other games. It's about maybe half a foot bigger. It's instead of 12 inches, it's 18 inches in length. And it's mainly because of the maps that come with it. And what's unique about this, not only is it heavy and big, but what's unique about it is the maps are really nice, thick cardboard. Because it's a flicking game, there's a bit of initial assembly required to build walls on those maps. I think it's maybe about 2 or 3 millimeter, maybe a centimeter or so of height in terms of walls, so that when you're flicking the disc, you have an area that can ricochet off of sides to do trick shots, I guess, is what they call it. Now, thematically, it doesn't really fit in because you're not shooting bullets off walls and hitting someone, but in a flicking game, it's a nice variation to sort of give yourself an advantage if you're successful. And there's also some variations in terms of how you achieve certain objectives or do certain tasks, which I think is quite innovative for this game. These two guys who created it, Mark and Peter, apparently they've come out with a new version of Seal Team Flix, but set in the space sort of sci-fi environment called, I forgot what it's called now. I just read about it not too long ago. But I like Seal Team. I like the military. I like, when I was growing up, I watched Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen, and I like, it was really cool. It's just cool to be a Navy SEAL, cool to sort of have tactical strategy and not just always go in thinking you're invincible with an overshield and shooting and gunning your way through. So we're going to go through the unboxing. And first we've got our campaign. Oh, we got the manual, the rules. The rules are quite in-depth. When I read or when I watched some of the reviews, I tend to favor anything that Dice Tower reviews, especially Tom Vazel, because one of his favorite games, Project Elite, so happens to be now one of my favorite games. And one of his things that he noted was that for a game that's supposed to be very, not light, but I'd say somewhere in the medium level, the rule set is very deep for what it is. And, I don't mind. They call it 9 phases to go through, but not all the phases are like long. It's you just follow the action patterns, and I think it's something that might take a few rounds where you have to do several playthroughs, make references to the manual just to get an idea of key concepts, and then you probably pick up really quickly. I found the same with Hellboy, the board game. I was referring to the rule book quite often, but now I've got a better hang after, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 plays. So in the game, you are a team of up to 4 players, so 4 seals. You have 6 seals to choose from, and they each have kind of slight variations in terms of their abilities. The really main difference is their health and their movement points. So typically, I think the personnel that has more health tend to have less movement, and the ones that have more movement have less health. At least that's what I saw. And you can outfit your character with certain weapons, primary weapons. You have a default secondary weapon, and you can get some equipment cards. Certain things are unlocked as you progress your player in terms of your ranking. You start at a very basic ranking. If you play the campaign mode, each successful campaign mission, you get to increase your rank status, and therefore allows you to have more, powerful or more elite type weapons. If you play skirmish mode, which is just one-off, then you, depending on the level or the map that you're choosing, it will tell you what level your Navy SEAL can be assigned, and then they can choose the weapons according to that. So it's very straightforward. You as a SEAL, you have 2 actions. You can move. You can do several free actions. You can do several actions that require that take up an action. So, for example, defusing a bomb or opening a locked door. Those require an action. Free actions are like revealing an objective or picking up a medical kit. So it's outlined in the book, and then there's several phases where the enemy reacts. They can give reaction fire. What's interesting about this is as you move, after each action, you're doing a reaction check. And that is if you are in line of sight of a tango. In this case, tango is the military term for enemy. If they have line of sight of you, they roll a dice for a result in whether or not they hit you or not. But that's what makes this more tactical, is you just can't go in running and gunning. You have, at every move, every action that you take, you do a check to see if you're in line of sight of the tango. And if you are, you won't probably do very well through this game. As the SEAL character, when you're taking shots, you will obviously be flicking a disc. Depending on your weapon, you have a different size of disc or not, different number of discs that you can shoot. And obviously, it's a dexterity game, and the goal is to make contact with the tango so that you eliminate them from the board. So here's the campaign guide. It just basically goes through, you have 6 maps, and some of the campaigns require 2 maps, which is really cool, I think. So there's a bit of variety. I'm sure this is an easy way to create your own missions as well. And it also gives the difficulty level in terms of the number of players, and it'll assign how many tangos are in the pool for spawn points, as well as your primary, secondary objectives. Obviously, the more difficult you make it, the more difficult the secondary objectives are, and the more tangos that are on the board. You earn points or scores at the end of a mission, and that's just sort of the end of round sort of tally up. And it's got an interesting concept, which is for your campaign. Let me just go back to the front. I think it outlines how the campaign flows. So you always start off with the same mission. Depending on success or failure, you move on to that mission. Depending on that outcome, you go to a common mission there, and then it spreads out. So it's an interesting branch, and this really creates, I think, a good replay value in the sense that if you're not successful, you can still continue up until a certain point at least. So I suspect that, and you can always change your weapon loadout. You have different strategies. So I think replay value actually might be pretty good here. And there is the end of the book, campaign book, it tells you how to set up all the boards. So from what I understand, it could take several hours to set up all the boards, and people have recommended gluing the boards on the walls. So when I pull them out, I'll show you what that looks like. And at the end, you have the sort of a campaign record sheet in which you can photocopy and laminate, and then you don't have to waste that. So we've got a lot of chits to pop out, Definitely very thick cardboard heavy. What I like is everything here except for the weapon cards is heavy cardboard based. So all the tokens are cardboard based, but not only that, but the player boards are cardboard based. In a game like this, for the price point, which I think is a very good price point, a lot of other games I have where most of the tokens are cardboard, maps, board tiles, but the player cards are usually just paper, like cardstock. And it's fine. It does the job, but I like that the fact that they created this in a nice thick cardboard. So here's 3 of the seals. You've got you've got the door cards. You've got some markers, objective tokens. You've got your tango standees. So these are not miniatures; they're standees. And I think it makes sense. Whoops, there goes the board. It kind of makes sense to have standees and not miniatures because when you're flicking, you want to knock them over. And miniatures, they're a bit heavier, they're a bit sturdier with a thicker base, so they're not as easy to knock over. And you might question whether you made contact with the tango or not. So here's the second board of seals to choose from. You can see they have a few different stats and some more tokens and standees. You have your hostages. And what's cool about this is you do have hostages that you have to take into account, rescuing or protecting. And here's something really interesting, which I think is the innovative part of it. In certain parts of the mission, you have what's sort of a side mission. So for example, if you were to, sorry, I keep on hitting the camera. So if you were to, say for example, you got to a point where one of your objectives you discovered was a bomb, and you have to defuse it. The bomb will indicate which you'll be pulling out this sideboard, and it's the bomb defusal board. And depending on the objective that you've flipped over that has the bomb, it'll tell you which one of these markers will have a disc over them. Then you'll take one of your discs, a blue disc in this case, you'll place it here, and depending on your level of expertise that you want to do. So for a rookie, you would take a larger yellow disc. For a veteran, a smaller green disc. And for an operator, which is basically elite class, it's a small, tiny blue disc. And basically, you'll be flicking and trying to knock those discs representing the wires off their location. It doesn't have to be off the board. It just has to be off the location. And I think you have 90 seconds to defuse it. And if you're successful, then you're successful. If you're not, then I think it goes off, the bomb explodes, you take damage, and anybody in your area takes damage. Another, on the flip side of this, I believe, is sort of a keypad, which has the same principle. You'll come across a locked door. The locked door will indicate how many numbers or how many digits are on the keypad. You'll roll a dice to determine which digits they are, so it's always random. And then you'll be taking a disc and you'll be flicking and trying to knock off the numbers off the keypad, which I think, again, is really cool. You have 90 seconds to do it. If you fail, it alarms or makes sound or alarms the tangos on the area. Another interesting part is the hostage rescue, or on the flip side of this one is the sniper board. But same principle. You basically, if your tank or if your seal is carrying a sniper rifle and you wish to use it, you'd be using this board, and the goal is to flick the disc so that your disc covers this point. If it lands in here, obviously you've killed your hostage and you fail. So I like that. That's really interesting. It's a cool side mechanic that uses dexterity in a I think, very creative way. And I'm looking forward to that because I tried flicking on this, and quite honestly, it's not as easy. You can fly right off, or you can kill your hostage. So you've got your sort of round tracker over here, and it has a spot for, as you complete objectives, you just place them on this board, and the number of tangos that you have in your pool. So we've got a few more tokens here. I'll try to lift this out. And just to sort of show you, so this is the round board, and it's really nicely thick. It's not even warped. Some of the games that I've purchased with cardboard maps and tiles, they tend to warp a little. So okay, so we've got 2 boards where these are the walls, and we'll be punching these out depending on the map. and we'll be inserting them into the proper slots of the board. They're color coded so that you don't have any confusion, which is actually nice. And I think one of the gripes about this game is that initial setup. This isn't the kind of game where you open and play right away. The first time you set this up, it's going to take a little bit of work. So this is the back side of one of the maps. You'll see that there are a lot of little chits to pop out, and these are the slots for those wall boards to sit in. So here's an example of a map. So for most of the maps, I think there will be a sort of a border that goes around the whole side. And as you put in the walls, that will provide a surface for which when you flick, it will bounce off. I think these are about 1-inch squares. So the overall size of this map, while it is, I think it's 18 by 12 or 18 by 13 inch, it's large. There's a lot of squares because the standees are small. So this is not your typical, I think 28 mil, maybe 28 mil. I'm not 100% sure. So very cool. I like the detail on the map. And unlike some of the other board games I have where there's not as much detail, I actually like the detail in here. So when you're setting up the game, there'll be areas where spawn points for your tangos. There's going to be sort of crates or blocking objects to provide cover. Cover doesn't protect you 100%. It takes, I think it reduces any successful shots by 1. And there are markers for attack markers, which is really cool. This is something I like, which is if I've got a tango here, if I've got a tango over here, or let's just say in this yellow square, and my seal is positioned here, the tango does not have line of sight of me because it's crossing through the corner. But because I'm at the corner, and thematically it makes sense, I can peek. I'm peeking around the corner, I can see the tango here, and I'm able to take a shot. I can actually place my disc here to take the shot, to hit it. So that's what these attack arrows are for. It's basically allowing you to do a peek in and also create your line of sight. So they may not have line of sight of you, but you have line of sight of them because of that. But on the flip side, if a tango is here, because of this, they also can use it for line of sight. So it works both ways. It's not just to favor the seals, but I think it's a good thematic representation of what it means to be around a corner or in an area where you can peek out and take a look even behind a door. So I think that's really cool. So that's one map. And we've got a whole bunch of others. I'm just going to pull them all out. Here's another map. And these are heavy. So altogether, they're heavy. And I think another gripe that people had was for this box, once you assemble all the boards with the walls, it doesn't necessarily all fit back in the box so that the cover fits flush. So that's something to be, I mean, it's not a deal breaker, but it's something to be aware of, especially if you have this is a heavy box, so you put this at the bottom of your stack of games, and then anything you put on top could potentially crush the maps. So here are the crates that are sort of your cover spaces, randomly generated and placed on the map. Here are your flicking discs of different sizes. Depending on the weapon, you would be flicking a different size, and depending on your difficulty level will depend as well. The crates are very plain looking. I think someone has made sort of stickers that you can turn them into more interesting looking crates, or I could just, scuff them up and make them look a little bit more realistic, or paint them. They provided a bunch of baggies to store all your tokens. You've got your standees, bases. You've got some basic dice, which are pretty ugly. I might swap these out for different dice, and 10-sided dice, as well as the reaction fire dice. So these will be the dice that, as you roll for reaction attack, it'll determine what happens to you when a tango attacks you. So if I think during one of the phases is an attack phase or a patrol and mastermind attack phase, so you would ignore this sort of blood drop or drop sign. This was 2 hits, single hit, miss, and a stun. When they're doing reaction fire, you actually ignore this part, and this is a bleed out. So if you are already wounded, you would lose 1 more health if you are wounded. this would be a successful single hit, a stun, and a blank, right? So I like the idea in terms of how they set this up. You've got a really basic timer. I think this is the exact same one I get in Boggle. And I think it's 90 seconds. I'm not 100% sure. And we've got all our weapon and specialization cards. So here's, before I open it, here's one example. You got the snake cam, which I think, again, very thematically cool. And once I crack this open, I can take a look at that. I've heard that the inset is really great. They thought really well about this. You've got your cards. You have your sideboards as well as your character boards that can go here. You've got spaces for all your tokens in their baggies. I'll probably see if I can use my some of the extra, I guess, token boxes, plastic token boxes that I have. Let's see if it'll fit in here. So I've got a couple token boxes that I have, like this one. Perfect, it fits right in there. I think I can double stack it. I've got one in here. Maybe might be able to fit two, I'm not sure. So this is good. I actually think this will be useful. And then I'm going to set up at least one board, and I think they recommend gluing those walls to the boards to keep them nice and sturdy, especially if you're taking maps in and out. Looking forward to this game. This is Seal Team Flix. It is a dexterity tactical board game by WizKids, and my next video will likely be a playthrough of it. So there you go. Until next time, stay bored.